Listen, I'm going on a backpacking trip in October. I need to drop like 20 pounds before then. I used to do rim to rim Grand Canyons. I mean, I've always been big guy, but like I was 40 pounds lighter. I've rim to rim the Grand Canyon. I've done 40-mile hikes.
Wow.
53-mile hike I did in northern Arizona.
That's crazy.
So I've soloed rim to rim Grand Canyon. I've done all this stuff, but I don't have anything to motivate me right now.
Why is it though?
See, I don't know. I'm just very much like, if somebody tells me I'm going to do something, and I prepare for it. And like, I've got this huge Vistage webinar tomorrow.
Yeah.
Like I have it all together, but I haven't rehearsed it yet. Like I do that last second.
Okay.
Like I get but I've been working on it, right? I put all the pieces together. So I'm just very much.
Do you feel like you like put things off and
no,
no. Okay.
I plan it out very succinctly.
Yeah.
So like when the first time I did the Grand Canyon, I was 330 pounds. And my buddy was like, for my 40th, I want to do bottom of the Grand Canyon and back. I'm like, I got to drop 75 pounds. He's like, how are you going to do that? I'm like, no problem. I just literally made a regiment, followed it like routine, lost the 75 pounds.
That's
did
true.
the hike. Like, but I have to have it. To me, a checklist doesn't work.
Yeah.
Because a checklist says do all these things. A process map says do these things in this order.
Exactly.
The sequence of things.
And so that's how your mind has always thought.
Works. So if I don't have a reason to do it, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
But when somebody challenges me and gives me a reason to do it, well, then I'm like, well, I know how to fix shit. I fix shit for a living.
Yeah.
This is just, I left this unfixed for a while.
Do you think it's like because you're so focused on your other clients that like
the cobbler's kids have the worst shoes in town? Right, the guy who makes shoes, his kids are barefoot.
That's what I'm saying, dude. Yeah, I find myself like putting things off for myself, and we could just keep this in.
Yeah, let's just keep rolling.
But I find myself putting things off for my like I'm so focused on my clients' videos and 100%. Growing their social medias, and so many times I catch myself putting things off because I need to focus on my content. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that is the basis of the system.
Yeah,
it's the basis of my book. It's the basis of M4. It is this understanding that you have not properly maintained that operational function of your organization because you were too busy growing.
Yeah,
and see, now we're reaching a point where we have uncertainty again.
Yeah.
Right? We haven't had uncertainty since 2020. Then before that, it was 2008.
Yeah.
Where there was just a tremendous amount of uncertainty. And that uncertainty, it's actually, we've been trained so much that everything has to be up and to the right. Growth. Think about every message you read on LinkedIn, every podcast you listen to, every book. It's all about grow, 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 grow.
It is, yeah.
Right? Everybody grow. Well, I've followed that.
Yeah.
Right. Your business has followed that.
Yeah.
You just grow, 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 grow. At some point, you have to stop and pull it into the pit stop and go, okay, I got to do a tune-up on this thing. Mm-hmm. Right. And that's why I like uncertainty in the marketplace, because when I am certain that everything will always grow every month, there's always new customers, there's always new marketplaces, people are always building, people are always buying cars, I can get real lazy. And I can lean back and I can say, it's just coming to me, right?
Yeah.
I just drink from the fire hose. But the second that it stops, when the carousel wheel stops, all of a sudden you either fall off or you grab a hold and you prepare yourself.
Isn't that weird? Because I feel the same thing, man. And I'm sure many people do as well. But it's weird though, when you're in that mode and you keep getting clients, like you said, and they're just flowing in, you're like, yeah, whatever. I can lay back. Totally. I can relax.
Lose a little money on this. Right. I'll make it up on the next.
Sure.
When you don't have any cash, you're like, wait, how much?
Wait a second.
Sorry, I'm doing that. Right. So these are just two different mindsets. And unfortunately, Western management for the last, since 2008, 2020 was for some people, it was a big bump, but others it wasn't. Phat Scooters is a great example, right?
Yeah.
We were terrified. We were like, my God, what's going to happen for about 48 hours? And then all of a sudden I watched the orders start coming through and I'm like, okay, now I have uncertainty, but in a different way. Because how the heck am I going to produce all these orders? How am I going to do all this stuff? So I had to get introverted then, and I had to start looking inside, and I had to not cut the crew. Like, think about this. If you're a race car driver and you're, lap 3, do you fire your crew? No. Because you're going to need them in lap 100.
Yeah.
So what we do in business is, as soon as growth stops, like as soon as things are normalized, right? And we see that there's a problem, the first thing that we want to do is cut the crew. But the crew are the ones that when things slow down are going to help us change the tires and fuel it up and do all those their role just changes, right? At this point, they're standing along the side, waving us on, cheering us on. But the second we pull into that pit stop, the second there's uncertainty, the second we need to pull into that pit stop,
we panic.
Right. And we think, oh, well, we don't need, what are all these people doing here? We're not making any money. Think about it this way. You ever drive a stick shift?
Yes. Okay. It was my first car.
Yeah, me too. Right. Now, I love driving a stick because the thing about a stick is a feeling.
Yeah.
And that feeling is I'm in first gear.
Oh, you're in control. Yeah.
I can still, a lot of businesses are in first gear. They're still growing, but they're growing in first gear. But then I want you to think about the sequence, right? You got to let go of the gas. So you have to stop growing.
Oh, yeah.
You have to exert effort in pushing in that clutch.
Yeah.
Make the shift, right?
Yeah.
But then you don't get an immediate response. No. Now I have to let the clutch out and then you feel it you feel the clutch engage, and then you're like, whoa. And then you're like, whoa, I just opened up a brand new gear. Now, all of that energy and effort before, when I was in first gear trying to drive 50 miles an hour, when I popped that sucker into second, I had to stop for a minute.
Yeah.
I had to slow my growth.
Yeah.
I had to take my foot off the gas. I had to make the adjustment. And then all of a sudden I realized, oh, wait, I just opened up a whole new range here.
Yeah.
I can do so much more things. Now it's not all this heat and this friction and tension and all the things that happen when you're 50 miles an hour in first gear. Second, you move into the second, you're like, oh, this thing just drives with ease. And then you start to tap out that tachometer again. And what do? You reach down, you grab a hold of that thing, and you go, I got to let off once. You're not going you're temporarily not going faster in order to go faster.
Yeah, and then if you jump to that next level too early, then you stall.
Exactly. So you've got to build that up, right?
Yeah.
So you're getting this analogy perfectly. And unfortunately, here in the West, we have been told grow. You cannot not grow for a month or a quarter or a year, which means I have no chance to engage the clutch, let off on the gas, make the shift, and then follow the sequence again. And here's what happened in 2000s. Here's what happened with Phat Scooters in 2020. We did that temporarily. We said, okay, let's fix our shit. Let's readjust these things when we were in that moment of uncertainty. And then when the orders came flooding in, now I'm popping that sucker into overdrive. And I'm just like, now let's let it run.
Yeah.
But if I can't do that, if I have pressure constantly to grow, well, you can't, you know what? We can't do that. We can't slow down. We can't stop. We have to keep the momentum going.
Yeah.
Then I'm in first gear. Yes, I'm going forward. And yes, but man, I'm burning out the burnout, right? I'm stripping all the gears. People will start to pass me. If I run into a hill, I'm going to bog down. I'm using more fuel. All of these things go away if you take that time to upshift.
You're right about like that mindset of you have to keep going, because like we said earlier, there's so many times where as entrepreneurs, we want to relax. When things are going good, we want to relax. But the truth of the matter is if you don't keep that momentum going, then you're going to lose it. It's going to come to you, right? That's why I like working out personally, is because it teaches you those lessons. Yeah. Like if you stop working out, you lose it. You start,
But you have to have rest days in order to push forward.
That's true. That's true. However, if, you have one too many rest days, or you're like, maybe I don't need to go to the gym today, even though you were planning on going, those little things, that you don't keep the momentum going can really, really hurt you. And then it's just a cycle and it keeps going. And then it gets worse.
And the flip of that is that if you never take a rest day, you eventually burn yourself out. Yeah. So it is a balance, right? I'm not saying that organizations shouldn't grow. What I'm saying is there are periods of time where you should grow when the market is going well. And when the market starts to turn, instead of freaking out and dropping prices and laying off people, instead look at it as a normal part of the cycle. Right. And just say, okay, cool. Now we're in the rest day. Yeah. And on a rest day, what am I going to do? I'm going to hydrate. I'm going to sleep well. I'm going to do all of these kind of things. So that I think is really important. And unfortunately, we live in a society where growth is the only option. When I got to tell you, I don't think I'm going to want to grow my business for more than about another year. Once I get to I know a number that I'm working towards. When I get there, I'm done growing.
Really?
I don't want to grow anymore.
Interesting.
I've been there before.
Wait, why is that though?
Well, I've been there before. We've been involved with companies that got public on NASDAQ, been involved with big organizations, thousands of people. It's a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
I know the sweet spot for me. Sweet spot for me is like $4 million a year. When I'm billing $4 million a year, it's easy. I don't have a lot of people. I don't have to have all these employees and offices and all of these kind of things. But when I bill below that, and when I'm in consulting, a lot of consultants talk about this, that $1, $2, $3 million. They even get up to that $4 million. They're like, I'm making great money and I'm having fun.
Yeah.
And then I went to $5 million and now I don't make any money and I hate everybody. So to me, why not just grow the business to the point in which you're comfortable? I know I'm good at running businesses that size. I'm not great at running businesses bigger than that. I can consult businesses bigger than that, but I don't have it in me. It takes too much energy and I have to do too many things I don't like to do.
Yeah. You know what I've noticed about you? So just to give people background, I've been working for you for 3 years. Like you were one of my OG clients. Yeah. Like I freaking love you, man. And in your method, and I've learned so much from you, just working for you and listening to you. And honestly, it's kind of weird like having you on a podcast with me because I'm so used to filming you. Over there, I'm usually behind the camera. Right. But I wanted to say, man, like the way you think about things, you know what I mean? And back to your point, what you were talking about is like, you think about things differently. Like, no, you never hear people saying, I want to stop growing at this. Yeah. Like everyone wants to just keep growing, especially, you know, like you said, here in the United States, in the West, everyone wants to keep growing, but you think about things way different. You're like, I don't, you know, people say, I want to work harder. I want to work harder. You are like literally the opposite. You're like, I think hustle culture is bullshit. Like that was one of your hooks in one of the videos we made. Hustle culture is bullshit.
I just had a client that had this happen. Listen, you want to hear what hustle culture does? Here's a great example. Work with this client. We identify a problem. And the problem is their employees. We use a couple different voting methods. And we put this chart up of all the different departments. And we said to the employees, what slows you down the most? And by far and away, everybody puts these little red stickers we give them. They each get 5 of them. They just completely cover IT. IT is the problem. So I say to the CEO, I said, why would they have done that? And he said, oh, they hate our software. They hate it. And I said, I don't know if I believe that. I said, go ask them. Well, why would I ask them? I've heard them complain about it. They hate it. So I said, we'll just go ask them. So he goes out and asks them. This is a factory. And he goes out there and he says, look, I know you guys hate the software. And the employee said, no, man, we think the software's great. He said, well, then why did you put all those red dots on IT? And they said, because to use our software, we have to use iPads. And you gave us all iPads, Wi-Fi enabled. And every day, all day long, every time we move something or do something or change the status of an order, we have to update the iPad. But there's no Wi-Fi in the factory. Because 3 years ago, you were afraid that we were streaming Spotify and all of these kind of things. So you shut the Wi-Fi off. So you gave us Wi-Fi enabled iPads, require us 10 or 15 times a day to put information in there, but we don't have Wi-Fi. So we have to walk the whole way to the front of the building, 200 plus yards to catch the Wi-Fi signal from the office.
And that is like eating up time.
Yeah. So this CEO says to me, he's like, I was a big fan of hustle culture. He said, I sit in my office. It looks out over the floor, watch all these people wandering around like little ants.
to get Wi-Fi.
And I'm proud. I'm walking around going, yeah, look at all my people, how hard they're working.
Yeah.
They're all trying to catch a Wi-Fi signal.
Oh my God.
And he's like, what do I do? I'm like, turn
hotspot
the Wi-Fi router. You had one out there. You turned it off.
Yeah.
Go plug it back in. Yeah. And you solve all the problems.
What the hell?
How did we not think of that? And I'm like, because you didn't ask.
And so,
we never go out and ask people stuff.
For real.
This is why we cannot make assumptions. I talk about this in a number of my books. You know, we've all heard it before. Let's break down the word assume. Ass, you, me. Anytime you make an assumption, it makes an ass out of both of us. So I just don't assume anything. Yep. When somebody tells me this is the problem, I have this thing called the 50-foot rule. And I talk to CEOs every single day, right? I've spent the last yesterday I talked to a group of CEOs, multi-billion-dollar companies. Many of them were. The 2 days before that, I was with 3 different plant managers from a well-known frozen food manufacturer. And every time they tell me the problem and they tell me what they think the solution is. And then I go, well, wait, you work within 50 feet of that, right? So you say you have a problem on this line. You've been down there, right? Well, no. I don't trust anybody unless that person works within 50 feet of where that happens. Because you have to be assuming. You can't be, you don't know. Yeah. The fact that you aren't there means you do not know. So let's go ask the people there what the problem is. And let me tell you, Levi, 9 times out of 10, we walk down there and we go, hey, do you guys know how this happens? And they all chuckle and they go, oh man, we've been talking about this for 5 years.
But they can't go to the executives because they feel the pressure. Yeah, that makes sense.
Say, why didn't you ever tell us? And they're like, we've been bringing this up for years in our staff meetings. You all mean you had no idea that drill press, and somebody just told me this recently. Listen, they said that they had this drill press operator. And I do a lot of, we work with tech companies, all sorts of things, but I like manufacturing and construction because I can see it. We can make a change and we can walk to the job site and see it. Right?
I love that. Yeah.
So this company says that they're reorganizing the factory. And they said, there's this guy running this drill press. And I don't know what they make. It's something in the defense, but they said he produces 8 units a day. And they said he's been there for 10 years, great operator. And they end up moving this machine about 15 feet away. And before it was over in the corner and nobody could see it operate, but now everybody could see it operate. It's sort of out in the open.
Okay.
And they noticed that by like shift starts at 8, that by 11, the guy's over there cleaning up the machine, you know, all doing all this kind of stuff. And they said, well, what are you doing? And he said, well, you know, after every 8 units, this machine shuts down and it breaks and I have to maintain it and I have to take the gears apart and I have to do all this kind of thing. And you know, I've been doing that for years now. And they're like, so you produce 8 units, but you don't do that in 8 hours. You do it in 3 hours. And then you spend the other 5 hours fixing the machine so that you can run another 8 units. He's like, yeah, I've been doing that for 10 years. And they're like, what if we just got you a new machine? He's like, oh, I don't know. I'd probably do like 40 of those units a day. So think about that, right?
Yeah, if you think about it over time, yeah, that makes sense.
Oh my God, like we hemorrhage more money. You know, profit is what's left after the hemorrhaging, right? Where we just made all of these mistakes and lost all this kind of stuff. So that point is that you have to go down to the people doing the work. If you've ever watched a military movie, we've all seen this. You know, soldiers defend the position of the general.
Yeah.
The general says you do this and the soldier stands there and makes sure thus far and no more. But scouts are totally different. Scouts go out on the battlefield, they make a bunch of notes and they come back into camp. And when the general sees a scout, what's he do? Come on in, brother. Let me get you a glass of wine. Take a load off.
Yeah.
Y'all need anything? Can we get you something to eat? Tell me about, and then they literally talk back and forth to find out how to update that map. The general doesn't assume that he knows more than the scout because he doesn't.
Yeah.
So the problem
but we do
is
that in business.
we make everybody soldiers.
Yeah.
What we should do is make them all scouts. Just say, hey, anytime
all
you
of
see
them
all
scouts. Of them. Okay. Interesting.
Think about it. A SEAL team, they all act as scouts. If any of them can make decisions that change.
True. That's true.
Any of them can call the general and the general goes, okay, change it.
Yeah.
Right. So unfortunately, we want people to operate. Well, we want them to obey. We want people to behave. You're familiar with like probably culture index, predictive index, Myers-Briggs. There's all these different tools you use for hiring people. And all of these tools tell you how somebody's going to behave after you hire them. Well, getting people to behave is real easy, right? Because if you've ever been around children, you just tell them what to do and they do it. No, never, right? Tell your girlfriend, boyfriend, wife, husband what to do. Just give them a list. Say, this is the way this is the time you're gonna get out of bed. This is the food we'll be eating around here. People resist that like crazy, but yet American management philosophy is to tell people what to do. That doesn't work. Never works.
So you're saying the solution is to hire people based off of their personality traits?
No. What I'm saying is that we use those tools to try to get people to behave. But instead, what we should do is we should go to the people and we should say, look, I don't think there's anything wrong with understanding that, but we have to go fundamentally to them and change what they believe.
Okay.
We need to say, look, this is how management's worked. I've yelled at you. I fire you if I don't like your performance. I do all of these kind of things. How about you and I just end that? And instead, anything that stands in your way of doing a good job, I'm not going to blame you for not doing a good job. Tell me what stands in your way. And then I'll just go do that stuff for you.
And then that makes them think that they're in control.
They are in control because all of the ideas I'm implementing are theirs. So who's not going to resist me?
Right.
When it's their idea, will they resist me? Absolutely. When it's my idea, they make sure it doesn't work.
There's a difference though, right? Yeah. Because I want to address this. Okay. There's people who say they do this. They say that they listen to their employees, or for me, it's my crew members, right? Yeah. But when you can't just say that, you have to implement what they're saying, because that magic that you're talking about doesn't come when you just say, hey, you tell me what to do now. The magic comes when you actually implement what they say.
Totally. So here's the trick. So one of my mentors was a billionaire. I spent a lot of time with him in my early 30s, and he was the kind of guy that would ask you a question and he's not looking for an answer. He wants you to leave and come back a month later after you've really thought about this. So I asked him one time, I said, what is successful leadership? And he said, well, there's only 3 ways to lead. And he drew this little thing out and he says, okay, your way. It can be always your way. Their way,
Okay.
where you could always just cave and do their thing. Or the third is to work in collaboration.
Yeah.
Right. And he says, which one of those 3 is true leadership? Now, he's not asking me to answer the question. He's telling me go think about it for a couple months. So I do. I think about it for about a month and I run into him. I see him in Dallas and he says, okay, what's the answer?
Can I guess what you said?
Yeah, please go ahead.
I'm going to say you said collaboration.
Yeah, that's exactly what I said. And he said, you're totally wrong.
Their way?
No, it's a balance of all 3 of those things.
Oh.
Equally.
Okay.
Keep score of all 3 of those. And what he said is this, that when you come to me as an employee. And
But
you
isn't
have
that
an idea,
just collaboration?
well, no, here's what he's saying is if you come to me as an employee and you have an idea, maybe it's going to cost us $500.
Okay.
I'm not even going to argue, negotiate. I'm just going to say, Levi, here's the money, go do it now. Get it done.
Yeah.
Right? So I've given in to you. If it's a bigger deal, if it's something that's really important, I'm going to say, well, let's figure this out together. Is there another tool? Can we do something different? We'll work together on it. And if I do that, if I give in to you when I can, when it makes sense, and I collaborate with you when I'm not sure, then when I have to call you up on a Saturday and I say, Levi, I need you to do this, you do it because you feel like it's the fair thing to do. Because see, I gave in to you. I've negotiated with you. I wouldn't ask you to do it.
You've already built up that trust.
Right. I wouldn't ask you to do it unless it was the only option.
Yeah.
So when I say, hey, look, I can't get, you know what, guys, we got to do it this way. Well, but what, guys, I trust you a third of the time, right? And we work together a third of the time. Can you trust me this third? And here's the weird thing. People just immediately go, yes, sir, I'll get it done for you. And they're like, I don't understand it. But if I needed to, you would tell me. So I trust you completely. That's how you lead an organization. And listen, here's the interesting thing. I tell CEOs this all the time. You got to have a balance, a third, and a third.
Yes.
Which means you're going to have to give in because their things are little. You're going to have to give in a lot because your things are going to be big. Right. So you've got to keep this like scales balanced, right? Of knowing, well, 10 little things is worth 1. So I really need him to do this. So I'm going to give these things away, particularly if the ideas are free or, hey, can we try this, boss? Yeah, go ahead. No, go ahead. Here's a credit card. Go.
Yeah.
Well, we were thinking about, we could maybe get some different tools that would make things. Yeah, here's a credit card. Run down Harbor Freight and grab them. Well, we don't know. Just go ahead. It cost me a couple $100. Like, but that couple $100, see if I lose that person because they don't like working there.
True.
And it cost me 20 or 30 grand to replace them. The $300 in tools that they spent at Harbor Freight the last 6 months.
That's why I like how you think, man. That's why
what I'm saying. You have to dissect this stuff. And listen, it is really about critical thinking.
Yeah.
And this conference I have coming up called The Fix, it's going to be happening in November here in Phoenix. It's really all about that. We're going to try to introduce a new method of improvisational thinking, where we actually propose an idea and then we capture ideas from the audience and then we go back and forth, sort of balancing this, bringing these things together, squeezing them together, tearing them apart, and showing people how to do these techniques.
That's really what you do though, is you don't, you say you're the process fixer and you do that, but the main thing after working with you for 3.5 years now, I've learned that the thing that you do is really just change the way people think about business, about life, about creativity, about all these things. And it really just is about that because 99% of the world thinks the same way. But that 1%, like you look at Elon Musk, for example, right? That guy does not think like us.
Not at all.
Everyone is like, who is this guy?
I can give you things that this guy's done that when you hear it, you're like, that makes so much sense. Why did I never think of that?
Yeah.
It's so simple.
But we look at
I
him.
call that leadership. Not leadership. Hello. Everybody should, but nobody figured it out. Everybody stands back and goes, duh. Like that's the easiest ever. I call that leadership. And that's what I try to do is I don't think a lot of times when I give talks, I'll get reviews afterwards and people will say, he didn't share anything I didn't know, but I knew that stuff, but I didn't do anything about it. Why? Like, why did I never take action on it until now? Like those things are fundamentally there, and I think anything that I just said there, it's not new. It it's the alternative way of thinking, right? It's just the alternate to what you're doing right now.
But I will say, like, even myself, I get caught up in business when I'm like inside and like I have like either editing projects or emails to reply to or just mundane work to do. When I'm doing that, I am thinking linearly. What I like about your method and your system is that you talk about giving people the capacity to think bigger. And what you need for that is to outsource those things, use AI maybe to, you know, automate some of the tools.
Because our brains don't think that way.
Right. But the true way, and I'm a creative thinker, I have to be thinking creative in my business specifically, and for a lot of other businesses too. But I'm just saying for mine, I have to think creatively. So I have no choice but to outsource those mundane tasks so that I can think creatively and do my job well.
Yeah. And see, I struggled a lot in my early part of my career, my 20s and 30s, because I was always an idea guy, but I didn't know how to implement any of those ideas. People thought what I said was interesting, but they couldn't apply it. And then I really had an epiphany, and I realized something, and it actually happened because of one of those cultural studies, like predictive, I think it was Culture Index or one of those ones. Somebody did one of these on me, and I got a chance. I can't remember if it was predictive. It was one of the 5 or 6 main ones. And I got a chance to meet with the CEO of the company, the guy that the company that created the assessment. And he looked at mine, and what he said is, he said, "Wow, it's really interesting. You're the most type A person in the world. Like you are 10 out of 10 out of 10 out of 10. Like there's nobody, you know, that is more gregarious than you. You also have insanely high logic. So you're a very logical thinker. And you have a very, very high capacity for reason.
I've noticed that.
Yeah. So you can reason, you can teach people to reason through things. But he said, here's the interesting thing. You have no attention to detail and no patience. And I was like, dang.
Hey, that's, I'm not going to cash you out or anything.
No, I mean, that's true, right?
Not wrong.
It's not wrong. And he says, and this is why you need to create systems to cover up for that.
Yeah,
true. So ever since that day, look at all of my work. Analyze, design, train, and enforce. There are 4 steps in solving a problem. AC3DS, attract, convince, clarify, create, deliver, service. Modalities of thinking. I use the 5 whys a lot. I have automate, outsource, abbreviate, eliminate. I have all of these different little things, and they're very simple, and I can memorize them. Because when I discover something, I go, oh, do we need to automate that? Do we need to outsource that? Do we need to abbreviate that? Do we need to eliminate that? Is this an analyze problem, a design problem, a train and enforce? And I just walk myself through those modalities, because here's the funny thing. The human brain loves shortcuts. So we will just, this is what that confirmation bias, right? If you watch the same news source all the time, eventually you just find yourself agreeing with all those things. It just resonates, right? But instead, what we're trying to do is saying, my natural capacity is to do that. So instead, I will use these frameworks to force myself to think in a different way and to force myself into the steps. That's all I'm saying. This is what engineers are taught how to do in root cause analysis. When an engineer goes to school, primarily what they're taught is how to think. But we've never, who taught you how to think, Levi?
My parents.
Did they? Did they sit down one day and say, here's how you break down a problem?
I would say more my dad, but he's definitely more of like an entrepreneur, like creative type. So that's why. But
90% of people have never been taught how to think. Where do you do your best thinking? What time of day? Do you need a cocktail? Do you need a couple of hits from your vape pen? Like, what do you need that puts you into that state to?
For me, it's a cigar and a coffee, man.
Right. Everybody has a little different, right? And it's like, or can you do that in your house? Do you have to be outside? I have one.
True.
You've met Dan Slow before. He thinks best in the woods. He likes to be out in the woods. And I'm very similar to that too. I actually think best in the mountains. Like, I think best when it's really, really cold at night. Really? And I'm sitting in a chair and it's like 35 degrees and it's just like cold enough, sitting around a campfire. All of a sudden, looking into that fire, for some reason, the thoughts in my brain all start to come. It's almost like a little psychedelic without psychedelics. It just starts to merge together. And I go, oh, wait, I got it. So we have to train ourselves to think. And we don't do that. We just accept what's out there. Listen, a lot of people, a lot of older people in business are disciples of Peter Drucker. I mean, this is the guy. ChatGPT says 45% of American business philosophy comes from this one guy. 35% of it then comes from Jack Welch, and 10% of it comes from Jensen and Mecklin. So 4 people control 90% of your thoughts about business.
Okay.
4 people. Now, 3 of them were professors. They weren't business people. Only one of those guys was a business person. But 90% of what you believe came from a bunch of academics in the 60s and 70s that came up with ideas on how you should manage your business. And we just accept that. Every time somebody says KPIs, OKRs, goals, reviews, all of these, everybody goes, yeah, okay, all that stuff. When did that stuff, like who created that stuff?
Yeah.
And what was their intention? KPIs were created by a professor, an academic, who actually said, I don't know if any of this will actually work in business, but go ahead and give it a try and see. So,
but they're not in business. So
right,
how would they know?
Don't know anything about it. They're a professor. Right?
Yeah.
So that's the point, is where do ideas come from? See, it's not just about thinking, but it's looking at the ideology that you have in your brain right now, what you believe about this world, and asking yourself, who put that there?
Okay.
You said your dad put a lot of those ideas there.
Yeah.
Where'd your dad get his ideas?
Yeah.
He probably got them from Peter Drucker. I bet you if you ask your dad, hey, did you ever read Peter Drucker? He'll go, yeah, man, that was everybody in my day. That was, we didn't read Tony Robbins books. We read Peter Drucker books.
Do you think sorry to cut you off,
you're not cutting me off, no.
But do you think like that first, like, cause I'm like, that's my first thought. It's the first people who taught me to think was my parents when I was a young kid. Yeah. Like, do you think that hits harder when it's the first, like, kind of,
See, I would say you taught yourself to think. And here's what I would say.
Okay, yeah.
Do you have any nieces or nephews, any babies around you at all? I don't have a lot of babies. Right?
I had a little brother.
Okay, you had a little brother. Lucas has a little baby right now, right?
Yeah.
So soon enough, Lucas's baby, we will be able to sit her in a chair, give her a marker and a piece of paper. And what will she do? Without us talk, before she can even talk, what will she do if you hand a little kid a marker and a piece of paper, or you sit a kid in the sand with a stick?
Start drawing in the sand.
They start drawing in the sand.
Yeah.
Why?
Instinctually,
tells them the way to learn about the world is through drawing circles. Look at kids when they all do it. And psychologists have now looked at these things where a kid, maybe 12 months old, is drawing, just looks like they're randomly drawing things. But when they hit the age where they start talking, you can point to that picture and you go, what is that circle? And they say, oh, that's the doggy. Oh, that's grandma. Oh, that's grandpap. See, we look at that and think they're just drawing.
It's a circle, yeah.
No, that's their brain literally understanding the world.
So when do we lose that?
We lose that right around the age of 5. And here's why we lose it. It's in the book. You can read it. There's a chapter called Eulogy. Guy named George Land, who is was a researcher that got a job working for NASA in the 1960s. Now the space race is on. NASA desperately needs great minds to solve complex problems.
Okay.
So they hire Land and they said, create a survey for us to determine who is a creative genius for our hiring process. So he does. He creates the survey. They give it to 280,000 Americans, and they identify that 2% of the adult US population is a creative genius. And NASA says, great, now we know who to hire.
Yeah.
These 2%. So then Land does his gig there as a consultant, and he goes over to work for the Head Start program, which is the preschool program here in the United States. So now he's working with all of these children that have not yet entered kindergarten. And he, on a whim, decides, what if we gave them the same test? 3 to 5-year-olds. 98% of children under the age of 5 qualify as a creative genius that could go work at NASA. Wow. 98%.
So what does that mean though? Like,
So for some reason at 4 years old, we were all creative geniuses.
Yeah.
By the time we're 18 years old, none of us are creative geniuses, very few. But what Land did is followed those kids throughout high school. And he found that by the time they were 10, only 30% were creative geniuses. 16,
so it trickles
12%.
down.
It literally it goes down every single year. And so what happens between the age of 5 and 18?
School.
That's the answer.
Yeah.
What literally pulled and extracted all the creativity out of your brain and forced you into a style of thinking that was totally, completely unnatural to you, because the natural style of thinking for you when you're 3 or 4 years old is you draw pictures and you point at stuff and you say, this is doggy, this is this, this is this. And as soon as you get into school, they say, you can't do that anymore. Now you got to do it this way. And we only lose, only 98% of us lose.
It's
our creative genius.
Why is the school system set up like that? I mean, I think it's pretty widely known that happens to us. Like, do you think that, I've heard conspiracy theories like, oh, they want to control you and all this stuff. No. I don't necessarily believe that.
Super simple.
But
Henry Ford, when he created the production line.
Oh, okay.
See, before Henry Ford, we were artisans. When we wanted to get a pair of shoes, we went someplace and they made us a pair of shoes. But Henry Ford figured out mass production. And in a mass production system, Henry Ford looked at the automobile and said, Ferrari and Bugatti and Lamborghini were making cars. There were, I don't know if they were, but there were other companies making cars at that time. Yeah. They just were making them as craft. They were making one at a time. 10 craftsmen working together to make one car. So a car was very expensive. Mm-hmm. But what he did is he broke down the manufacturing and production of Ford. I believe it's the 87 steps. And one step, I know the next step, Joe knows the third step. None of us know it all. We only know our little part, which means we sucked out all the pride and joy of work, because the joy of working is completing something and pushing yourself back from your desk and going, it's publishing the book. It's pushing the car off the line. But when I can't see the beginning and the end of it myself, and all I am is just a cog in the wheel, I don't need any creativity. So Henry Ford influenced the way we educate children. Starting in the 1920s, we started to create the standard of how we should educate children, because the belief was this: well, the only thing that you need to know, Levi, is how to do step 37. And he needs to know how to do step, and we need obedience and compliance to the step. So we didn't bother to teach people to think, because creativity actually screws that up.
True.
If you start getting creative on your job, I don't want that. I want compliance and obedience. So this is where this started in the 1920s. And now we're reaching a point where we now live in a world where we've got to get creative again, where we each individually need to produce a product. I don't care if that's a service, a podcast, a book. We all have to deliver something to the world. We don't just go, some of us go work on a manufacturing line, but you know what I'm saying? Especially in an era where robotics and AI are coming, that kind of work is gone.
So then I have a question then. So you create systems and maps. Mm-hmm. How do you allow people to be creative while still making a map? Because I've always wondered that. You always say, think creatively, think creatively. This is going to give you the capacity to think creatively, but the map is so linear, and it's you do this here, you do this here. I've seen your maps; they're a whole wall. It's a whole wall. So do you allow points in the how does that work?
You're setting me up so perfectly. So the mapping technique that we use is very unique. It was created by one of the biggest telecom companies in the world in the 1990s. We have now acquired that intellectual property, and I share it freely. Yeah. I mean, yes, you can come get certified in the method and learn all the advanced stuff, but we actually are launching a free online course too to just teach the world this method. Okay. It's really simple. Lines on our maps are actions. 1099 or W-2. Some work has been performed. Circles only represent completed segments, the results of the work. I'm not telling you how to do the work.
Sorry, a
action,
circle.
Result. Actions are lines, results are circles. Action, result, action. So the bubbles on the map, those circles are things that have been done. The lines are where the work is happening. So there's a lot of autonomy between the bubbles, because you might do it a little differently than I do. But what we do is we build those maps, and then we say to people, what's the best practice to go from here to here? Well, I've got an idea. Here's how I do it. And then I said, well, you know what? Could we try it this way? We can experiment inside the lines as long as we get to the bubble.
That's
so
true.
Actually, we get insane freedom because we show you the constraints. We show you where we have to start. We show you where we have to end. We show you the milestones along the way, and we show you the results that we need. And then we empower you to be creative and think through, how do I get those things done? Now, there are certain things. Obviously, if we're making surgical instruments, not
you gotta be careful with
that.
The
creativity can't happen on a daily basis, but what can happen is every week, in my method, we do something called a quality circle.
Okay.
Every week, each team gets together for a stand-up meeting. No one sits down, 10 to 15 minutes long. And all we talk about is, what did we learn this week?
Yeah.
Who screwed up really bad? Like, come on, holla. Like, dude, I massacred this thing. Okay, great. You didn't do it because you're ignorant. You did it because humans can make mistakes. So let's see if we can improve that so no other human can make that mistake. And literally the team just works together to figure out how to protect themselves from errors. And then they come up with ideas. And every week we ask them, what are we going to start this week? What do we need to do differently? What are we going to continue? What do we want to get rid of? Yeah, we don't want to do it that way anymore. So the creativity's in the lines. The bubbles are set by management. The circles are the results that we need. The lines are from the people within 50 feet of that work that actually know how to get it done. And then my job as a manager is simple. I have to optimize the actions. I have to go to the people performing the actions and I have to say, look, it takes 2 hours to do it. If I need it done in an hour, what would we have to buy? Oh, well, we could do this. Had this happen the other day. I have a client that they get their software system prints out invoices as PDFs. There's no other format. But they have a client that wants their bill a couple times a day, invoices that they get each day. This client wants the bill with additional information on it. The system can't do that.
Okay.
So here's what they've been doing. Every day they print out the PDFs and then they retype all that into Word, but add the extra fields all day long, 3 or 4 times a day, hours and hours a day. And I said to the lady, why don't we do an editable PDF? And she says, you can't edit a PDF. You can only read one.
Right.
And I said, that's true. With Acrobat Reader, you can only read. But for $18 a month, we can upgrade you to Adobe. And guess what?
2 of those a day, man.
Yeah.
Like, that adds up.
You can edit directly in there.
Yeah.
And I showed it to her and she starts crying. And she's like, do you understand how many hours every day?
Yeah.
She's like, it's
because you have to retype the whole
entire thing.
Yeah.
And she's like, over and
twice a day.
I just open it and put the number in and close it. And she's like, oh my God, do you know how much? So that's the creativity I'm talking about. The result is the same bubble. Ship the PDF to the client. We just did the work differently. So we optimized that work. We optimized the relationships between the objects. These 2 objects, these are our results. The relationship is the line. How do we improve that? So to me, it's the most creative method in the world.
Dude, I have so many questions, but this has been going.
Good. I don't even know how long it's good.
I want to start talking about like your books. I obviously want you to plug that. I want you to talk about what you're doing. We haven't even gotten to like, we talked about your method, but I don't even, your background and all that stuff, but just like maybe give people a quick synopsis of just your background, leading people, into your book and what you're doing in the future.
I think what allows me to do the work that I do is that I do not have a formal education. I did not go to college. I went to a private Christian school.
It's good that that we're saying this after we said that school was like this.
Yeah, I didn't go to school.
Yeah, I think by this point people are like, school is awful.
It's a problem. I have to, if I'm hiring people, I have to ask myself a question anymore. Do I really trust somebody who spent $125,000 to go to school for 4 years and knows nothing? Is that really somebody that I want working for me? Because they make a lot of really bad decisions, right? I mean, it's like if it says 4-year degree, graduated, I'm like, oh man, this might not be the guy for us, right? Because he's already proven he makes really terrible decisions in life. Listen, if you're going to be a lawyer, if you're going to be an engineer, there's lots of reasons to go to college.
Exactly.
I'm just saying, if you're going for communications.
Oh, you're just going
to party. That's like the basket weaving of the 1980s. It's like, come on, you're going to
you might as well just say you're going to a frat and partying.
Right. I'm going for business. It's like, right, come on. You can find out more about business on YouTube in 15 minutes than you can in a PhD in business.
Yeah, or by starting one.
Right. Anyway, so
you didn't go to school.
I didn't go to school. I grew up in a very, very religious community where my parents were pastors, very evangelical, meaning that I was really taught as a young boy, there's no use investing in things like education because Jesus will be back by then. So why would you bother with all of these kind of things? So I lived this very sort of sheltered life. Even the Christian school that I went to, I didn't really, this is sort of a shock to a lot of people, I didn't know how to write until I was 32 years old.
Yeah.
I could barely read in my 20s and early 30s. So much so my first 2 executive jobs, the companies realized this and surrounded me with assistants because they're like, this guy can't send an email. He can't write a proposal. He doesn't know what a sentence is. I did not know any of these things. Now I wrote a book, a Christian book, when I was in my early 20s. And I literally had to just sit down with a guy and he recorded everything and then he just wrote it because there was no possible way that I could do this. But I've always been very inquisitive. So when I got those assistants, when they sent an email on my behalf, I spent time at night and I read through it and I would figure out why there's a pyramid there, why there's a comma here, why it's spelled T-H-E-I-R here and T-H-E-R-E here. Right? I thought through all those things. And eventually by the time I was about 35 or 36, I didn't need those assistants anymore. Now I could write my own emails. And then at that point, it really became a challenge because I'm learning how to read and write later in life. So I really just embraced it. And I started to realize that I think better in writing. So I write, I mean, I've gotten 5 books out there. There's at least 1,000 others in my Google Drive. Some have 1 chapter, some have 50,000 words, some have 100,000 words. I've just found it's the way that I think. So didn't have that formal education, but I was able to, because I was gregarious and I was a pretty good thinker, I was able to get jobs and get actually into the executive teams of companies without knowing these things. So that's really where I started. And I also found that because I thought differently, maybe because I didn't have those restrictions of being taught all these things as a kid, that I just saw things in a totally different light.
Yeah.
And I always tell this story. I was about 4 years old. I was in the basement of Steve and Rita Swintoski. I was friends with their son. And there was a National Geographic, a stack of old National Geographics there. And I opened one and it was archaeology. I was probably 5 years old, 6 years old. And there was a picture in there of a archaeological dig and they were extracting a dinosaur from the ground. And it was over the pages, it showed them cleaning more and more of the things out, right? So it's like you can't see it, then it starts to reveal and over and over and over.
Okay.
But I noticed that they had created a grid over the picture. They took string and they put 4 sticks in the ground and then they tied string between those sticks. And then they made a grid. Okay. And that grid was over top of the dig. And then in the article, they would say things like, well, in A1, you can see the tip of the wing. And you could look up there and go, oh, this is the A1. Oh, that's where the wing is. And then it would say things like, so obviously it's in this, and you could start to think, oh, if the tip of the wing's there, well, then the rest of the wing mean it's going to be in B2. Yeah, and you could start to, and that just fascinated me. Really? I just realized that this grid system was the way that my brain thought.
Interesting.
Like I needed to see it all come together.
Do you play chess?
I do play chess.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting.
So like I played a lot of chess when I was in like middle school. I was very, very good.
Are you one of those people who can like, play without looking at the board or no?
You know what? I thought I was that kind of guy when I was like 13, 14 and I was doing some competitions and stuff. And then I realized that there are just people out there that I have to think about it. There's other people out there. It just comes so naturally too. Right. That I sort of got disgusted with chess.
Really?
I won't even play the online. My brother plays all day long every day. It's like, you want to play? You want to play? I'm like, I don't want to play anymore.
But it's that grid thinking you're talking about. Yeah.
So understanding the relationship between the objects and the playing field that we have. So that's really my education. It's very self-educated from that perspective. And I think that's given me a huge strategic advantage. I don't have as deep of an ideology as most others do. I did on the religious side. Okay. I had to figure out how to break that down. But nobody ever taught me how to think. It was just not valued in the community I came from. So I was a very free thinker because of that. Even though I was restricted by religious ideology, I was a very free thinker outside of that because I had no way to understand the world outside of that. So I had to really create my own method. And I just had to keep asking questions. And I've probably found the 5 whys when I was in my 20s as well. It's a Japanese technique where you just keep asking why. My mentor, once told me, I said, what's your secret to your success? And he said, anybody that comes to talk to me, he said, they tell me their problem and I go, why do you think that is? And then they talk again. And I go, well, that's really interesting. Why do you think that is? And they start talking again. And he goes, by the fifth time I've asked why, they've solved the whole problem on their own. Yeah. And they think I'm the one that gave them the advice. He's like, I didn't do anything.
But that is what I like about you. And I've noticed, that you always ask questions. Like even whenever I'm on set with you, if it's something you're not familiar with, most people, like everyone has an ego. I get that. Most people would just be like, oh, I know how to do that. Their ego takes over. I know how to do that. I know how to do that. What I've noticed about you is you always ask me questions like, should we do this? How do we create a viral moment? Right? Yeah. How do we do that? So you're always asking questions.
You're the expert. I don't know.
Exactly.
I mean, I know a lot about this. I've done podcasting since 2000 and my God, 2009 was my first podcast. One of the first 1,500 shows on Apple Podcasts, right? But I don't know anything about it. I mean, I have to assume I know nothing because I don't work in it within 50 feet of it every day. See, I've been around it. I've been within 100 feet of it for a long time. Television show produced, like all those kind of things. I don't know how to run the camera. I mean, I did the same thing on the set of the TV show. And I wasn't the director, I was an executive producer and star, right? Yeah. But it was, it was my show. Yeah. So I had a lot of say, but I asked, I might throw an idea out there and say, does this make sense? Right? Yeah.
So, you do that. I like that though.
Yeah. No,
like us, like directors are always looking for like creative ideas or improvisations to go outside of the script.
It usually becomes the stuff that really, in the end, all a director can really, going back to the point earlier, a director puts up all the results that they need. But the action, when they say action,
exactly,
it's the action. It's that clicking that says, now you improv to get me to, you need to get me here, actor. Mm-hmm. Here's where we are. Here's the part of the storyline, because you have to be able to see the whole entire thing. Get me from here to here, improv go.
But
and we do that.
You know what's interesting about that is that a lot of the times those natural moments that you create or that just happen because you almost let it just happen. Like you know, as a director, they always say, just let it happen. Let it, flow into what it's going to be. Yeah. A lot of the times the viral moments, the catchy moments, the moments that make people keep watching are the moments that are improvised, are like natural, because those psychologically to humans are more relatable. We can relate to that because it was a natural moment, funny moment that happened. Exactly.
Yeah, we can sniff out bullshit.
Exactly.
Right? So I mean, that's really the background. And I got very fortunate that I did some turnarounds early in my career because I was a little bit egotistical and cocky. That I challenged some people that I worked for. Yeah. I was just a sales guy. And they were like, hey, things aren't going good. We're probably going to shut it down. I'm like, well, just put me in charge and I'll fix it. And, I'm like, I'm going to lose my job in 3 months anyways.
Yeah.
Let me experiment. And I did. And I did that a couple times and had great success. And I thought about that. I mean, one of the great examples of this company, Unishippers, that I was a sales guy for, it got taken over by private equity. I was the only person that stuck around through the transition because nobody was getting paid. I still went to work and didn't get paid because I was like, well, I'm just in the line. The bubble's over here.
Right.
They're acquiring it. Right. I'll get paid over there. And one of the first things I did when they appointed me manager is I fired the biggest customer in the company.
Really?
First day. Immediately went right into his office. I said, we're done.
And they didn't fire you?
They were freaking out. I mean, guy flies in from New Orleans. He's like, okay, bro, tell me the situation here. Okay. And I said, here, let me tell you exactly what's going on. We don't make any money on this guy. The reality is this guy's a huge pain in the ass. He's constantly badgering our people. He's harassed some of the women that work here. He thinks he's in control of everything. He's always beating us up on price. I'm done with him. And he's like, okay, how are you going to make this up? And I said, I'm not worried about it. And he's like,
excuse me?
We'll fire you in 2 weeks, right? Let's just see. But here's what happened. About 3 weeks later, that customer called back and said, what are the rules of engagement for me to come back and be a customer?
Really?
Well, pricing goes up by 20%. Next time you talk that way to one of the girls that works here, you're fired. We'll stop you. We will literally pull your stuff off our trucks and sit it in the parking lot in front of you. You're either going to treat us with respect and you're going to pay the right rate, or we will fire you again. And guess who became real obedient real quick? He was like, sir, yes, sir. He just did what we asked him to do. Sometimes you just have to have the ability to do that.
Yeah.
I think I always look at myself, and this is why I love consulting. I don't mind to get fired as a consultant. That's totally fine. I got plenty of other fish to fry. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about it.
Yeah.
See, if everything with me is fear and money about losing my job, then I have to operate differently. I have to comply to the way that you think. But if I'm not worried about that at all, and I'm here because I want to be here, and if at the end of the day you go, this thing's not going to work out, I'm like, I agree. Let's get out of here. Let's move forward on it. Everybody's afraid to get fired. I think we should all be trying to get fired. Right? Try to find, because that's where
it almost, it's like reverse psychology almost. You know
Let me
what I mean?
give you a good reverse psychology.
Yeah.
My favorite quote is from Bill Gates. Bill Gates is a guy who, you're not old enough to remember this, but in the late 70s, early 80s, everybody was learning about computers. You had to DOS prompt. you had to learn how to do executable files, and you had to learn how to work from the D prompt and the F prompt, and you had to do all these things. It was a DOS. We had to sit there and we had books and manuals. I want to do this function. Where page is that? And we'd have to like learn all of these things. And then Bill Gates is just sitting there one day and he goes, everybody's learning about computers. Why don't I just teach computers about humans? And he did. He created Windows. It's like, instead of teaching the whole world how to use a computer, I'm just going to teach the computer how to interface with humans.
I remember you saying this. Yeah.
And here's the funny thing. So years later, and I just recently found this, and this has now become my favorite quote. Years later, somebody asked me and said, no, it's okay, I don't mind. We said it's the fern between two, whatever. Yeah.
We're between the ferns between us.
Yeah. But somebody asked Bill Gates and they said, what was is there a secret to this? And he said, yeah, absolutely. There is a secret to it. Only hire lazy people. That was his answer. And he said, because lazy people will lay awake at night to think about the easiest way to do things. And if I want to do things the easy way, I don't want hard workers. I want the laziest SOBs I can find.
Interesting.
But I want smart people.
Yeah.
I want smart, motivated people that are lazy.
Yeah.
Now, when I say to a CEO and they say, what's your advice on hiring better people? And I say, well, number one, I don't want to hire good people. I want to hire average or below average people. Because my system is so good that they'll be a rock star. Why do I pay for a Michael Jordan if I already have a rock star team? I don't need that. Right? Yeah. My system is good enough. I'm a good enough coach that my people perform at a high level. I don't need rock stars. Yeah. They're rock stars because of the system. So number one, I want to hire average or below average people. Everybody else is trying to hire the best. Go ahead, pay the big money. Did you see what the OpenAI Meta thing was yesterday?
Yesterday?
Yeah.
No.
So OpenAI came out publicly and said Meta is trying to poach our developers, right? And they're offering a $100 million signing bonus to any employee that goes to work for Meta.
Really?
Cash.
100 million?
$100 million signing bonus to try to get these top AI developers, the people that created ChatGPT.
So they're poaching.
Meta's trying to hire them away and offering $100 million in cash. Now, can you offer, if there was a really great editor out there, Levi, could you offer them $100 million?
No.
Yeah, no, you couldn't. So the reality is Meta's desperate to get good people and pay these ridiculous sums for the best people. I can't afford I can't afford a $100 million bonus.
Yeah.
I got to work with the average guy and just make him a rock star. So that's that piece, right? The laziness is one part. I want people that are smart, but willing to find the shortcut. Right? That's how I improve the system.
Yeah.
And then the second piece of that is, I don't know if I really, I can't afford the best people. So I'm just going to make my system better so that the people that work inside that system produce the rock star result.
I love that.
That I think is the philosophy. That's the turn point for me. That's what it comes down to, is those two things combined.
Yeah. So let's talk about your book. Yeah. You want to promote it really quick?
Yeah, so it's called The System. There it is. Yeah, please do it. It's out on Amazon right now, hardcover, softcover, Kindle, and Audible, which I recorded. You can have those ones.
Thank you.
This book took a while to write. It was about a year and a half to write. At one point, it was 100,000 words. We cut it back to about 40,000 in the end. And I think the first part of the book, right at the beginning, the dedication of the book is the most important, because it says this book's dedicated to those taking big swings at sacred cows and dreaming of barbecue, right? There are a lot of sacred cows in management and nobody wants to take a punch at them, right? And I'm happy to do that. I'm not even saying I'm right half the time. Yeah. I'm just saying we should at least be willing to say, this is the idea. Does that hold up? Now, there it is. Yeah, dedicated to those big swing sacred cows barbecue. And this is important because, again, our ideology, what we believe about business, candidly, Levi, most of what you believe about business came from the 19th century or early 20th century. You're trying to take a 21st century business and grow it into the 22nd century. Yeah. And you're using ideas from guys that came up with this stuff in the 1890s.
Right, yeah.
Like, they didn't even have TikTok in the 1890s. Like, they didn't have any of this.
Yeah.
So is the management philosophy to manage people who ride horses to work, right? And have never seen technology, never used a telephone, never seen a television. Are those ideas to manage those people equivalent to manage people today? I just don't think so.
No, man.
So we've got to upgrade our system, the system of management. And there is an alternative system that we don't have to, I know we'll get off in a little tangent here, but Charles Darwin, right? Origin of Species, 1859, he writes this book. Yeah. And the most famous thing that comes out of the Origin of Species, what everybody knows Charles Darwin for, is survival of the fittest. Right?
Oh, yeah.
Survival of the fittest. Yeah, except for that's not Charles Darwin. That he never says that.
Really?
He actually says the exact opposite in the Origin of Species.
Wait, so sorry. So Charles Darwin is the one who did the Darwin
evolution,
evolution with the birds and the islands and stuff. Yeah.
So Charles Darwin's theory is that that heritable traits get passed down, and what we believe is that only the strong survive. Right? The strong defeat the weak. The survival of the fittest. This is what everybody and literally a few years after the book comes out, a well-known speaker at the time reads the book, gets on stage and says, oh, Charles Darwin's work, what he actually meant to say is survival of the fittest. And that's what capitalism is. Oh. And everybody adopts this idea.
Interesting.
And it becomes like a mantra. Everybody's like, yeah, survival of the fittest. And it's in all the newspapers. And poor old Charles Darwin keeps writing articles going, that is not what this book says.
Wow.
He even goes and watches the guy lecture. Charles Darwin does. And at the end of the lecture, he says, this is a summary, right? He says, that guy's an incredible presenter. It's sad that he's wrong about everything he's talking about, but he is an incredible presenter. So Darwin doesn't believe in the origin of species. He doesn't believe in the survival of the fittest, which is the basis of capitalism.
Yeah.
We point to Charles Darwin and say that idea is how capitalism really came to light, but yet it's untrue. What?
Yeah.
Like, you can go ask Chat, you can go Google it. Your belief about what you believe about business and how business works is just wrong. Fundamentally, actually, what he says is that the organisms that have the highest level of sympathy and cooperation, they're way better than anything else.
Yeah, man.
So this belief that we have that survival of the fittest is the basis of capitalism, that we should all be competing against each other, right? Defeating our competition. Fundamentally, that's not part of evolution. Evolution is the exact opposite. It says if we all cooperate together, we'll do much better. Yeah. So we are all in competition against each other because we believe the theory of evolution, yet the theory of evolution doesn't say that. It actually says cooperation is the way better method.
Wow.
So there's time and time again like this. And I think, to me, Levi, what I try to do is deconstruct ideas. When I hear something, I'm like, okay, well, who told you that? Why do you believe that?
Yeah.
And who is the guy who came up with that idea in the first place? And you track something back like this Charles Darwin thing and you go, oh, wait, it was a misquote. And now we build a whole society.
Yeah. Yep. So, I mean, I think, I want to wrap things up with you, Derrick, but dude, this was like one of the most interesting podcasts, I've ever done, man. And I just want to say,
good questions.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
no, but I'm interested in your philosophy. I always have. Yeah. That's why I love working for you, man, because I always learn something new whenever I'm with you or talking with you. And so I'm like, I can't believe I didn't think of this earlier. And I'm sorry.
I've been wondering. I'm like, when's he actually going to invite me? No, I'm serious.
Dude.
I'm never here. So but I think that's really important. I think the number one thing that holds you back, that holds everybody back that's watching this, is dogma. It's ideology. It is what you believe. Because what you believe becomes the way that you perceive the world and your attitude about it. It becomes the way that you think and the way that you then act. So you're taking these actions because somebody told you something. And what if what they told you was wrong?
Yeah. We never think that.
We never think that. So we always have to go back to that cycle and say, wait a second, does this make sense, right?
True.
How do we break this thing down? And there's systematic methods to do that. Like I talked about before, this isn't just like, I got to sit in my backyard and smoke a joint and go, oh, how do I, universe. No, this is systematically saying, well, why did that happen? And why did that happen? And what does that mean? And just asking questions. It's think about every detective show you've ever seen. Remember I said the kids drawing in the sand, right?
Yep.
Think about every detective show you've ever seen, police show. What do they do to solve the crime?
I'm thinking of True Detective right now.
Think of what they do. They put all of these things up on a pegboard.
On a board.
And then they draw.
They draw the pins.
And they put pins.
Strings.
And then they put this.
Yeah.
How do they solve complex problems?
Maps.
They use maps. And how do little kids solve complex problems of understanding reality? Drawing in maps. And how do we solve our problems in business? I don't know. We don't use any of those things. Wait a second.
A lot of times we don't solve them.
We don't.
Yeah.
All of the complex problems we have to solve in our life, we do in a very specific way. And yet we don't do any of that in business.
Yeah. I think it's because the map is so daunting to people. But what I like about this is it's showing that it's going to be worth it. Like you honestly, you inspired me. I don't even think you know this. I don't even think I told you this, but you inspired me to create a process map for my business.
Nice.
Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So I literally created a customer journey map and drew it all out, lines, circles, everything, because of you, because of your method.
See, the next piece of that is once you've done that's helpful because it's helpful as an activity, but then you have to stand back, get 5 feet away from that thing, sticking up on the wall and go, all right, I want to do twice as much business next year. What breaks? What tool do I have to buy?
Yeah.
What person do I need and what role do I need from them to do? This is thinking, right? This, you can't fix what you can't see. And that's true in our heads too. This is why anybody that's ever sat by me in a conference, Cody, I'm just trying to think of folks, Ashley, the other Ashley, anybody that's ever sat beside me in a conference where a speaker's happening, they're amazed. Because I pull out a big sheet of paper and I will literally without, it's almost like automatic, what do they used to call it? Automatic drawing, where it's like the spirits are telling you what to draw. It was a real weird thing that people used to, but I literally get a pencil. I just start drawing and maybe I'll draw a circle. I'll draw a dot. And as that I just start drawing everything out. Some of it doesn't even make sense, but that's just the way that my brain processes information. I'm like, oh, I'm learning now. So I'm making circles. Oh, I'm gonna make a line over to this circle because he's talking about something else. And everybody that's ever sat there like, can I get a picture of that? It doesn't look good. I'm not an artist. It's all in pencil because I erase. I mean, every time I get up from a conference or an engagement, like where I heard another speaker, there's just pink snow everywhere from all the erasers. It's like that eraser dust.
Oh my God.
Dude, I've got up at conferences and people are like, bro, there's like a half an inch of pink snow everywhere because I'm just erasing and drawing and doing these things. Yeah. It's just, I try to release my mind in that way. And awesome. I don't just look at it as being a means to an end. I look at it as once you have that thing together, there's 1,000 conversations you can have. And on top of that, if you ever want to sell your business, let me tell you, the easiest sales ever, and I've been through multiple transactions, is when you roll out the map in front of the person that's buying it and you say, we are here. This is the step. This is how it works. Oh. We're trying to optimize this step right now. This is an area you probably could get 10%. And you literally map that business out for them. And at the end, they are drooling on their checkbook because they're like, this guy understands this business. Instead of just, well, send me the financials. Yeah. It's like, okay. But no, he understands how this business works. That's
a great point. Yeah. And that's why people need to hire you.
Hey, don't hire me. I don't know. Just come get free. Don't hire. I don't seriously. Yeah. Come get free content, right? I mean, we have paid content and it's all the good stuff, but I will tell you, and I've had clients that I just had one recently. The guy called me and said, hey, I'm ready to move forward. And I'm like, I don't even remember you. He's like, oh yeah, December 2019, you sent me a proposal. And he's like, but I've been still working through all the stuff that you showed us in the workshop, where I was at. And now we're ready for the next step. So just consume, right? Alex Hormozi does this. He's like, just take it, use it. And then once you start making money on it, then hire me to come and really do this thing.
Cool, man. So we've talked a lot about, your system, your method, everything. I want to know how you are feeling just in your personal life.
Yeah. So that's a good question. I'm feeling fat, dude. Like, every time I do this, we always have to, I'm a fat guy, right? So I'm uncomfortable. I'm not PHAT fat. I'm feeling okay though. But I mean, I'm traveling a lot too, but it's,
You're feeling fat. Okay.
I'm feeling fat.
Fat. Okay. So I have a challenge for you though.
Okay. All right.
This is kind of just off the dome, but we've been talking this whole time about you being the process fixer.
Yeah, I fix stuff.
I want to challenge you and tell me if this is like stepping over a line, but I want to challenge you to create a map. Okay. Over the next 6 months, I want you to create a map of your action plan to lose, let's say 50 pounds.
Okay. That's
deal.
All right. So am I just creating a map or am I actually doing this?
You hesitated. I want you to create a map and I want you to actually implement it. And then next time you come on this podcast, let's say 6 months, next time you come on this podcast, I want you to be 50 pounds down.
In 6 months? Or
do you think you could do
That's a lot, dude. Okay, all right. I'm liking it. This is the way my brain thinks too, because I'm very
that's
big
what I'm
on
saying. This is the way your brain thinks, man. If you're feeling fat, like you gotta.
And it's funny because it's like the cobbler's kids have the worst shoes, right? It's like I do this for everybody else, but I don't.
You gotta do it for yourself.
I got home at 10 o'clock last night. Back on the road next week. I'll make a plan and give me a year.
A year?
A year.
Okay.
We'll do a progress update in 6 months.
That's what we'll do.
That's a good, I like that. I like that because you're right. I spend so much time fixing everybody else's problems. I'm shifting around in my chair as a big fat guy. And I'm like,
I tell you, man.
All right. I like that.
Every time.
So you keep us accountable, people. Okay.
Yeah, let's do it.
I'm game.
Let's do it, man.
But no, I like that idea. And I appreciate that challenge too, right? Because I've said this how many times? All over the years we've been shooting, I'm always like, oh, dude, you're fat. You gotta get my skinny side. You can't do this. You can't do this, right? Because I am used to walking a stage, right? So when I have to sit down, I'm like, I just feel a little uncomfortable, right? It's like, he called me out, and all right, we're gonna do it.
I'm calling you out, man. I'm sick of hearing it. Ooh, I'm sick every time we shoot, man. No, I'm kidding.
No, that's okay. I like that. I really do appreciate that.
I'm kidding. You're amazing, Derrick. Seriously.
Game on. We're going to do this thing.
Boom. Seriously, dude. Thank you for coming on.
You got it anytime.
This is seriously the longest podcast, but I think it's been interesting the whole way through. I really enjoy talking to you, man. So,
check out the processfixer.com.
That's what I was going to say.
All that kind of stuff. Processfixer.com. The book, The System, is out right now. Come out this fall, too. Levi's going to be there. It's going to be a good time. A lot of the folks that you've been palling around with that I've introduced you to, they're all coming.
Awesome, man.
For the Fix 26. And it's going to be a really good time. It is going to be a first of its kind conference that, there'll be, obviously I'll do a couple of major presentations in this, but I'm bringing some really great friends, some economists, some great thinkers that I'm bringing together, some folks that you've met, others you haven't, people that are really forward thinking, that are thinking about what the world's going to be in 10 years. Nice. And that's really important because right now there's so much uncertainty in the world. We need to really understand where the puck's going. Mm-hmm. As Gretzky used to say, and once we know where the puck's going, we can start to skate there.
And so people can find this on the processfixer.com.
It's right on the main page. There's a banner there. You can buy tickets.
I'll put a link in the description.
Yeah, we've got an early bird special right now. It's like $1,500 and it includes your meals. And trust me, it is the cheapest conference you will ever go to. The amount of information and knowledge you're going to get downloaded in this thing is going to be insane. And it's a beautiful facility in downtown Phoenix. And love it. CEI, you've been there. It's a killer spot. It's a really cool spot. So it's going to be a good time. Get your tickets, fly in town, come hang out. We've got friends from all over the country. Got friends from Detroit and we just announced tickets this morning, and I've already got a bunch of people flying in from across the country to come. So
I'll tell you guys, it is 100% worth it because look, I've known Derrick for a while now. I'm telling you, he thinks like no one else. You guys are going to be opened up to a whole new reality if you come to this. And I can't wait to see you there. I'm going to be filming, and you guys seriously need to sign up for this. I will put the link in the description and go right now. Thank you all for watching the Real Results Podcast. Derrick, thank you for coming on.
You got it. Thank you.